Have you ever had a full day where you achieved everything that you set out to do? And then the evening hits and something feels off. Not dramatic, just quiet, a kind of emptiness. In your everyday life, you take pride in being productive, reliable, disciplined. People know that they can count on you. And yet, when work is finally over, when there are no remaining tasks demanding your attention, that's when you notice it. You don't feel connected. And sometimes you don't even feel fully here. Then the questions start looping. Am I broken? Why does this feel so hard for me? Why do I feel lonely even though I'm doing well? If this resonates, it doesn't mean that you're socially inadequate or that there's anything wrong with you. If you're a high achiever, it simply means that your system adapted to succeed in a way that slowly trained you out of connection. My name's Shu. I've been through this pattern myself, and I work with driven, capable people who look fine on the outside, but on the inside they feel that quiet disconnection. In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 patterns that keep high achievers lonely: signal override, hyper-independence, and performance-based identity. And here's the thing that most people misunderstand. These patterns aren't flaws. They're actually intelligent adaptations. But the strategies that were once effective in helping you succeed in school and at work are no longer serving you to build the relationships that you so desire. And it's not about letting go of your ambition. It's about building awareness. When you can see the system clearly, you can start rebuilding connection without abandoning the parts that helped you succeed. All right, let's start with the first pattern. So I remember seeing this meme once about people not letting themselves go to the bathroom until they finish a work task. And what struck me wasn't the meme, it was how many people instantly related to it. And honestly, I remember thinking, yeah, I've done that too. So this is a relatively benign example, but it illustrates how we override our bodily signals in order to achieve. And I think we've all done this to some degree. For example, skipping lunch to complete a task, using caffeine to get over the afternoon lull, or pulling all-nighters to finish a report. But you can't ignore these signals forever. You're only delaying them. And when you do so, you end up putting your body into survival mode, where your most basic needs become the most salient. And at the extreme, you only pay attention to the signals that are screaming the loudest, when they're at the level 10. Perpetuated, this becomes chronic stress and eventually burnout. So of course, it becomes really hard to have quality, meaningful relationships when we're just struggling to get by. And I'm not trying to blame achievement here. I'm also not trying to say that achievement and striving and performing is wrong. Not at all. But when it's out of balance, when it's not supported with our own self-care, when it's not aligned with our larger holistic life goals, that's when it becomes a problem. So to better understand this pattern, we need to look at where it came from. Why do you work so hard to achieve? So to answer this question, we can go back to looking at the needs that achievement is trying to meet. Here, it's important to remember the distinction between strategies and needs. So needs are the fundamental energies that sustain life, whereas strategies are the ways to meet those needs. For example, the need is for food or nourishment. Different strategies could be to cook at home, order delivery, or eat out. So going back to achievement, working hard, being productive, earning more money is a way to feel secure. And there are other ways to meet the need for security. For example, some people derive a sense of security from being really healthy and active, that they have a lot of confidence in their body, in their ability to navigate the world through physicality. And there are other people who derive security from their relationships, through their communities. They may not have as many resources, but when they do have resources, they share with each other. And when they are in need, they trust that other people will share with them. And then just one other example is that some people, they get their sense of security met through faith, through spirituality. So my point is that one is very subjective, and there are multiple different strategies, different ways to meet the same need. So it's really important to ask yourself, what does it actually mean to meet the needs for security? Is achievement really the only way to meet my need? Or is it just the one that I've known for most of my life and trust? And another important need that drives people towards achievement is meaning. So this is true for me. Everything that I do, I try very hard. When I do something, I like to commit myself fully to it. But taken to an extreme, this can also be limiting. The shadow is perfectionism, procrastination, and just taking a long time to get things out. But at the end of the day, the reason why I care so much is because it means something to me. Like me taking the time to put my energy into making these videos is because it means something to me. And for people who have strived really hard to be excellent, to really excel, to compete, whether it's in sports or in academics, to challenge yourself to rise to the top, or at work to take on more responsibility, to develop your skills, to hone your craft. It's admirable. You're putting your heart, your soul into it. That's beautiful. And excellence is not the only strategy to achieve meaning. There are a lot of people who derive a tremendous amount of meaning by helping others through relationships, by being a friend, a partner, a husband, a wife, a father or mother, or a son or daughter. So I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong, what you should do with your life. Not at all. Quite the opposite. I think most of us are in this situation because we've been listening to other people about how we should live our lives. In contrast, what I'm offering is an invitation for you to self-reflect and discern what's most important for you. What's most important in your life in this moment. Because life changes. We change. Needs change. Your priorities in your teens and early 20s, late 20s, 30s may not be the priorities that you have now. If you've accumulated a lot of material resources, those needs aren't as alive anymore. And if this is a point in your life where you really care about shifting your priority towards relationships, you're going to need to learn different strategies. Now, that doesn't mean giving up your ambition, your drive. Instead, it's about alignment. So most high performers, they approach life a top-down control. For example, if you're an athlete, you're constantly pushing your body to do more. You're directing your body through your volition, your intention, your will, to push through difficulty, to push through pain. But what's also necessary is to listen to the body. So there's a bodybuilder named Mike Mentzer. Mike Mentzer was a former Mr. America and achieved the first perfect score at Mr. Universe contest. The man was huge. But his training philosophy differed a lot from the conventional methodologies of that time and today. He believed that recovery was the limiting factor to growth. Yes, he worked very hard, but it was the recovery that he focused on. He listened to his body to know when it was ready to train again. And sometimes there would be weeks between working sessions. And this is what I call the bottom-up approach, which is to listen to your body for the signals it's telling you what it needs. And instead of working against your body, against your nervous system, you're working in alignment. So for example, if you don't like cleaning, try this. Instead of forcing yourself with shoulds, like you should clean, you should scrub the toilet, clean the bathtub, think about why you want to do it. It's the satisfaction of having a clean home, the ease of not having a mess. It's the relaxation that you walk into your home and it feels pleasant. It smells nice. It's a place where you can relax and unwind. There's beauty and spaciousness and order. That's calming to the nervous system. That's coherence. And instead of this top-down pressure, when you align into the needs that want to support the movement of life, there is an energizing effect. So going back to achievement, I'm not saying achievement is bad. But think about why you want to achieve. What are the needs that support achievement? And instead of, I should do my work, I should be productive, I should do XYZ, replace that with, I'm choosing to do X, I'm choosing to do Y because of my need for meaning, contribution, expression. And the practice is that you're now tuning in to your system. And when you do that, you'll also start to hear the other messages, the other signals and needs that are telling you that they also want to be met. And this happens through emotions, feelings. Because when needs aren't met, they'll tell you. So if you need food, your body will tell you through hunger. If you need water, your body will tell you through thirst. And if you need rest, your body will tell you through feeling tired. And similarly, if you're needing connection, intimacy, and love, care, support, your body will tell you through loneliness, through sadness. So these emotions aren't flaws. They're not bugs, they're features. And the more familiar you become with these signals, the faster and more accurately you'll be able to discern what the messages are and how to choose the best action to meet the needs. And eventually, what you discover is that you're actually more productive because you're not fighting against yourself, because you're motivated by life's energy. And not only will life be easier, it's actually just more enjoyable. And this is also the path to building relationships. And if you think that you have to force yourself to be social or friendly, that could be the very thing that's holding you back. It's that pressure. Because think about it. Children know how to play. They know how to make friends. They know how to care about other people. It's all the other stuff that we've layered on top that keeps us from engaging in those ways. And so the process of returning back to that state, it's trusting yourself, trusting the signals, trusting your intuition, trusting the wisdom that lives in you, that you don't have to control, you don't have to manage everything so much, that the natural life force in you, the desire to connect, the desire to share experience, the desire to play and have fun, that's enough. But it can't be easier said than done to let go of our control, especially because many of us learned at an early age that this is the only way that we can get our needs met. Because for many of us, our caretakers weren't consistent. And so we learned that we couldn't rely on them. We had to rely on ourselves. And this is the second pattern, which is hyper-independence. And in these days, I see a lot of comments online, people who say, I'm better off alone. I don't need other people. And honestly, it kind of breaks my heart that people have been disappointed and hurt to such a degree. They feel like they have no other choice but to shut out other people and the rest of the world. And I can't blame them. These wounds can cut really deep because they connect to our early attachment systems. And even though we're adults and we know that we're able to take rejection, but there's a part of us, a very young part, that feels that pain so deeply that it's terrifying. That the anxiety, the dysregulation, the fear can be so intense that we rather not take that risk at all. And on the flip side, there are many people who are afraid to ask for help because they don't want to inconvenience other people. But at the root of this pattern is also fear. There's a fear of losing connection. If I ask for something and I inconvenience them, and if they think poorly of me, they might leave me. They might abandon me. They might reject me. And if they do that, then I don't know how I could survive. Again, logically, it doesn't make sense. We know that. We know that as an adult, if I make a bid for connection, if I ask for help, and the other person says no, I'm totally okay. I don't need them to survive. But that wasn't always the case as children. And so there is that younger part in us, in our nervous system, this memory of what it felt like to be completely dependent, vulnerable, helpless, to need another person. When we didn't get that assurance, that sense of security met as a child, we extrapolated it into the present moment. And so this pattern of hyper-independence, it's really about social acceptance. And no matter how hard we try, we're social creatures. We want to belong. We need connection. And even our efforts to be independent is really just a strategy for belonging. And there are also some other flavors of hyper-independence, different sets of needs that the strategy is trying to meet. So I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering because I always loved engineering. I loved problem solving. I loved building things. I felt like I had an agency over my material, physical world. And that was very stabilizing for me. And it was also fun. But I fell in love with problem solving because if I ran into difficulty, if I encountered challenge in life, I could use my skills to solve it. I can figure out a solution. That I wasn't dependent on someone else to save me. And that's a great strategy. That is a great ability and skill to have. And the problem is when that becomes the only strategy. And that was my only strategy. I didn't know how to ask for help. Yeah, I was a straight A student. But embarrassingly, I wasn't very good at working with other people. And multiple times in school as well as work, I found myself redoing other people's work. I remember I had a deliverable at one of my first jobs. We had to present to the leadership. And when I saw what one of my teammates did, I was furious. And I ended up spending the rest of the night rewriting his entire code. That may have helped me as well as the team professionally, but it certainly burned the bridge in that relationship, as you can probably imagine. And this was early on in my career, and I had to learn that lesson the hard way. And if you worked in teams, if you've been in leadership positions, you know that you have to trust other people. You have to ask for help. You have to delegate. It requires a completely different set of skills than just pushing your way through a problem. But work relationships are different than personal relationships. Because at work, there are roles, there's a structure about the type of interactions and how to relate to each other. And in personal relationships, the roles are less clearly defined. And the rules of engagement differ relationship by relationship and need to be worked out between the parties. And if you don't have the skills to navigate that process, to come up with those agreements, then relationships can feel really unpredictable and unsafe. And so then the natural reaction, because it feels so threatening and risky, is to pull back and be independent. So the third pattern that explains why high performers tend to be lonely is because they have a performance-based identity, that they have linked their sense of self-worth and self-esteem based on productivity, validation, and status. And external validation can feel really good, but as soon as we stop moving, as soon as we feel like we're falling behind, that's when our insecurities come up and we start to panic. And this is the world that we live in. The constant messaging is that we're not enough. And especially for men, the message is that you have to achieve more. You have to earn more. You have to do more. A lot of the content on the internet for men who are trying to find a partner, trying to find a girlfriend, the messaging is that you need to make more money, look a certain way, you need to be high status. And I'm not arguing against that there's truth there. There is. But again, is that the only way? Is that the only strategy that you're using? And if so, it becomes brittle. Because I believe that we all deeply want to be loved and accepted, not just based on what we achieve and what we provide, but based on who we are, based on our care, our presence, based on how we show up for other people, our humility, our playfulness, our devotion, our loyalty, our integrity, and that our external achievements are really just a reflection of our deep inner values. And I keep coming back to this. It's not about the extremes. It's the middle path. And my invitation for you is to reflect, are you doing what you're doing solely to earn the external validation of others? Or are you living in alignment with your values, your deep inner core, your integrity, your authenticity? And it's not a binary yes or no question. It's what arises in your consciousness, what arises in your body, what happens in your conscience as you reflect on this question. And when you are living in alignment, people feel that. You feel that. There's an inherent pride, not about what you're doing, but who you're being. That's what I consider real self-esteem and real value and status in a person. You know, these strategies of achievement, drive, discipline, even the self-flagellation, these were strategies to meet your needs for security, belonging, predictability, inclusion, meaning. But life changes, and so do you. And the strategies that worked one time in your life may not be what's working now. And to illustrate this, I'm going to tell you a story from a book called Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche. And it's a story about the evolution of a person over his lifetime. So according to the story, when we're children, when we're young, we start off as camels. The camel asks one question: what is heavy? And then it kneels down and takes the weight on its back. This is the phase of discipline, endurance, responsibility, self-control, and obedience to values, rules, and expectations. The camel doesn't ask why, it just asks, how much can I carry? And this is the stage of life where a person learns to delay gratification, push through discomfort, submit to structure, build competence, and earn respect through effort. And this is where students grind, athletes train, professionals build careers, and high achievers are forged. The heavier the load, the stronger the camel gets. And the camel feels noble, because it is. It takes pride in what it can carry that others can't, that it is able to do really difficult things, that it is reliable, that it is strong. And again, there is real meaning and morality in this stage for doing these hard things. And so this is why so many high achievers stay here for decades, because the world rewards camels. But the danger of the camel is not weakness, it's over-identification. If you stay a camel too long, you confuse burden with purpose. You equate worth with endurance. And you stop asking whether the load is still worth carrying at all. And eventually, the weight that once built strength starts to crush vitality. And this is where burnout, numbness, and despair appear. Not because the camel failed, quite opposite, but because it has done its job. And at this point, the camel must transform in order to progress to the next stage, which is to become the lion that confronts the dragon of thou shalt. And so if the camel asks, what is heavy? The lion asks, why must I carry this? And this is the moment when a person who has already proven his strength begins to question the rules that shape them. And so the lion represents autonomy, truth-telling, boundary setting, differentiation, and psychological sovereignty. And this is where someone starts to say no. Not out of laziness, not out of rebellion for rebellion's sake, but because something no longer feels true. And then comes the dragon. On the dragon, each of its scales is inscribed with the words thou shalt, or you should, you must. This is who you have to be. Psychologically, the dragon represents the internalized expectations, the cultural norms, parental voices, and the societal definitions of success. And this is the superego made visible. So the lion's job, if he chooses to, is to overcome these rules. And if the lion is strong enough to defeat the dragon, he then transforms into the final stage, which is a child. And this isn't a child of naivete or irresponsibility. This is about integration, of someone who has lived through the conditioning of life, have cultivated that inner strength, built real skills, and then have done the inner work to overcome societal expectations and the rigidity of rules. And when they're in the form of the child, they experience liberation, creativity, play, for the sake of generation, expression, for the pure joy of being alive. And in this stage, action doesn't come from obligation or fear or trying to prove something. It comes from alignment. It comes from true inner choice. And in this final stage, the person becomes whole. And it's not a rejection of the world. It's not a rejection of responsibilities. This is actually true freedom because it comes from self-connection. And self-connection is the bedrock. It is a prerequisite for connection with others. If you want to have real, meaningful, fulfilling relationships, you have to start with the relationship with yourself. You've already done the work of becoming the camel. The next step is for you to ask yourself, what next? What do I want and why? What makes life truly worth living for? And if you're still here watching, thank you. Not for me, but for the world. Because we need more people who are living in alignment with their truth, with purpose, with passion, with joy. And if you have clarity on what that looks like for you, I would love to know. Please leave a comment, send me a message. I would love to know what's inspiring you and what your vision for your life is. And if there's any way I can help, please let me know. All right, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.